Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, the premier inspirational magazine for women since 2006. I don't know about you, but I believe we've all held a vision for something we want to happen in our lives, whether it's a new job, a healthy relationship, or a life experience. When our expectations are met and things go according to plan, we feel accomplished, in control, and on track. But how does it feel when things don't live up to our expectations? And we end up with what my guest today, Christine Hassler, calls the Expectation Hangover. And we're going to be diving into that today and so much more. And I'm excited about this conversation because I read Christine's book a while back and also featured her as the cover feature on a previous issue of Aspire Magazine because I so believe in her teachings on this topic. Christine is the best-selling author of 3 books. Most recently, Expectation Hangover. Free yourself from your past, change your present, and get what you really want. Christine left her successful job as a Hollywood agent to pursue a life she could be passionate about. For over a decade, as a keynote speaker, retreat facilitator, spiritual psychologist and life coach, and host of the top-rated podcast, Over It and On With It, she has been teaching and inspiring people around the world. She truly believes, and you're about to find out how passionate she is, the fact that once we get out of our own way, we can show up to make the meaningful impact we're here to make. Welcome, Christine.
Oh, thank you for that beautiful introduction. Yes, I am very passionate about leveraging our expectation hangovers.
Well, let's dive right in with that. What is an expectation hangover?
Well, it's a good question because I made up the term, so it's helpful to define it. But most people can probably just from the label guess what it is. But specifically, it's when one of 3 things happen. Either things don't go according to plan. You thought you were going to get a raise by a certain date. You thought that a business idea was going to be successful. You planned it all out, and then it doesn't happen the way you wanted it to happen. Things don't go according to plan. Even a flight being delayed is a mini version of an expectation hangover. The second way is things do go according to plan. Your goal or your expectations are met, but you don't feel like you thought you would. They don't produce the feelings of peace or confidence or happiness or joy that you expected. You get that great job that you wanted, but you're still not happy. You still don't feel creatively fulfilled. Or you finally get into that relationship that you've always wanted, but something still feels like it's missing. Or the third kind of expectation hangover is life just throws you an unwanted, rather unpleasant curveball. You get fired, you get broken up with, you get diagnosed with something, and you're just left with the feelings that all expectation hangovers have, which is disappointment, lack of motivation, anxiety, regret, and sometimes even a loss of faith. Like why is this happening to me? And so that's the longest definition of an expectation hangover I can give. The shortest definition is it's disappointment that causes suffering.
So it's disappointment in what is, right? And how we're looking at what is.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And one of my favorite quotes is from Byron Katie. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but it's called The Work. And she talks about how when we fight with reality, we only lose 100% of the time. And that's so true. And that's what's happening in an expectation hangover. What's happening is not in alignment with what we want. And often, it's actually very hard, too. Using the example of a flight being delayed. Okay, Your life's not going to end, right? It's one of those inconveniences in life. Maybe you're disappointed because you missed something, but things will work out. Or you lose your job, all right? That's devastating in some ways, and you have to work through that, but you'll get over it. And then there's expectation hangovers that are really, really difficult, like the love of your life dies, or you get dumped unexpectedly, or you or someone you love gets diagnosed with an illness. It's normal to feel the feelings that are associated with disappointment. And so when I teach about leveraging an expectation hangover, one of the things I caution against is spiritual bypassing or too much positive self-talk. You don't want to skip to right away, oh, everything happens for a reason, and I just have to get in agreement with reality, and I just have to accept this. True, you have to accept it in terms of we can't change reality. We can only change our response to it. But I also think it's important to honor the natural feelings that come up in an expectation hangover. So, for example, in the book, the first part of the treatment plan is the emotional release plan. And I really teach you how to feel your feelings in a way that you don't turn into a victim and in a way that you don't get lost in them, but that you honor them and release them. Because it's natural to feel things like sadness, anger, shame, those kind of things when an expectation hangover hits. So we don't want to ignore those. We just want to learn how to process them and release them in healthy ways.
And I'm sure everyone, because as you were speaking and you're naming the different types of stages, I was relating. I've been in each of those stages at one time or another in my life, and I think it's all part of the human journey, right? But I love that you define it. So then when we have this awareness about where we are, we can say, oh, okay, this is a normal part of the journey. And then we can turn to the resources and, prescription types that you share in the book.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes I think when we're not aware that this is just a pattern that's occurring and we can shift it, we have a lot of self-judgment.
Yes.
Right? So it's like you've shown a light on it. And we can say, oh, right, that's where I am in this process. And I love what you just said, too. Because, with a last name like Joy and all my brands are about inspiration, I'm Miss Positivity. And I had to walk that line to learn over the years, because I wasn't always this way, right, to also allow the opposite side, the shadow sides, the feelings, the stuff that comes up when we're in crisis.
Yeah.
And my family, we've gone through a lot. And everyone says, you're still so positive. I said, I can choose positivity in the midst of the crisis, but I know when I need time to go inward and process. Yeah. And I had to learn to give myself that time to process everything while still maintaining the essence of how I want to show up. So I love that you said, don't bury it, don't label it, don't judge it. All those emotions are there for us to process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, and I see this with so many people, we people please, we avoid, we distract. In our world, there's so many ways to numb ourselves from our emotions. And there's even, there's ways like alcohol, drugs, sugar, TV, things like that. And then there are almost the ways we're rewarded for distracting ourselves, like work. So many people distract themselves from feeling through work. Even if you love what you do, if you're working in a way that keeps your feelings suppressed and distracts you from dealing with an expectation hangover, that's still an unhealthy coping and numbing device. And the thing about expectation hangovers is they start to aggregate. They start to kind of stack on top of each other. And I notice that people tend to have similar expectation hangovers. Like if you never really dealt with the abandonment issues from your childhood, you tend to have expectation hangovers that go along the lines of feeling like someone left you, or someone betrayed you, or someone rejected you, or someone abandoned you. If you have, a lot of kind of unprocessed belief systems and feelings, let's say you grew up in a really, a home where there was a lot of fighting and arguing about money, and money was always an issue and always a problem, then you may have a lot of expectation hangovers that have to do with your finances, or not being able to earn money, or your value, or things like that. So the reason I'm sharing this is just to articulate and show that expectation hangovers aren't just random. And they always are in service to our growth and our healing. And they tend to trickle back to earlier issues. And that's why I really wanted to write this guidebook, is because I wanted people to have a way to not only deal with the current expectation hangover, but to be able to track it back to the past and get to the root cause. It's almost like the thinking about when we have a physical issue in the body. You can treat the symptoms, right? Like I could have, my foot could be hurting, but where is that coming from? Is my foot hurting because my posture's off or my walk is off or something's off in my back? It's like we want to get to the systemic issue rather than just treating symptoms.
That's a great analogy, and it's so true, because a lot of us, whether it's spiritual, emotional, physical, we just go right for the symptom, right? And because it's kind of like, oh, no, I don't want to look any deeper than that. I'll just look at the surface stuff, and it's like we believe we're protecting ourselves by not going deep, but really true healing comes when we go deep.
Exactly.
When we come back from our first break, Jill, I want to talk about how you came to discover all this that makes up the foundation of the expectation hangover, if it was from your personal experience or your work with clients over the last decade, because I always love to hear the seeds that began something or the insights that led to the creation of something so powerful. And I'll be back in a moment with Christine Hassler, author of Expectation Hangover. You can learn more at christinehassler.com, and I'll be back in a moment.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Hey, America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America in your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Inspired Conversations radio show. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Christine Hassler. And Christine, right before the break, I had asked, what led to the discovery of all this body of work that you're doing around the expectation hangover? Was it your own journey? Was it what you were witnessing in clients, or a combination of both?
Definitely a combination of both. So I wrote the book in 2014. I started coaching people. My first book came out in 2005, and I met my first coach, spiritual teacher in, early 2000s. And just as a little background, I'd always been interested in psychology and human development. I had issues as a kid with some bullying and feeling left out, and actually was depressed as a kid and was sent to a doctor for it. And, it was the time when if you had a symptom, you got medicine for it. So I was put on antidepressants, which were helpful for me at the time, and was on them for about 20 years. And part of my my evolution, my learning, my growing, and my healing was to really heal my own depression and really look at like what would send me in that. And I had been seeing psychiatrists and psychologists from a young age, but when I met Mona, my first coach, she had a more holistic approach to things. And she really helped me understand myself, and she was really the first person to see me as not broken. And just as an aside here, just go on a little tangent, for anyone that's working with any kind of coach or therapist, it's really, really, really important to not have a come from of I'm broken and I need fixing. You want to see yourself, and you want to work with people that see you as whole and complete, that's nothing's wrong with you. You're just a human having your experiences. And all of us humans have been through difficult things, and we've developed coping and adaptive strategies that sometimes get labeled with a diagnosis. And it's important in our healing journey, first and foremost, to know that we are not broken and there's nothing wrong with us. We're just human, and we all are learning and growing in our ways. So that was a really important distinction for me to make. And once I made that distinction, I was able to really start exploring personal development more. And at the time, I was working in Hollywood. I had a super successful job, but I wasn't happy because I my whole life had been about achieving results to prove myself because I was desperately insecure. And so I call these compensatory strategies. I write about this in the book as well. And my compensatory strategy to cover up for my massive insecurity was just to keep raising the bar, achieve one thing after the next. So I had a very good-looking life from the external world. I checked a lot of things off the list. I'm sure some listeners can relate to that. Like you check off, get a job, get in a relationship, you get the house, whatever your checklist may be, but you're missing fulfillment. And that's what was happening for me. And at the time, I was also in a relationship, and we'd gotten engaged, and then everything just started falling apart. I ended up resigning from my job, which threw me into an even worse depression because I was very identified with what I did. I had a disagreement with my family, and that was really tough. My health was really suffering in other ways. I was going into debt because I left my job, and then about 6 months before my wedding, my fiance called it off very unexpectedly. So, this was when I was like 26 years old. People listening have probably been through worse. But for me, at that young age, it was really my rock bottom. And it was when I really made the official pivot to own, without self-beat and self-criticism, that the common denominator in all of my expectation hangovers was me. And so if I was creating all of this, maybe I could create something different. And that's just when I became consumed with personal development, personal growth, wrote my first book. One thing led to another, and Expectation Hangover came after, working in the field for 10 years and having more of my own expectation hangovers, including a divorce, and really seeing that the only way that I was able to help people, one of those people being myself, was a very holistic approach. And so that's why the treatment plan that I use for expectation hangovers combines emotional, mental, behavioral, and spiritual tools and techniques. And it's been influenced by my work with clients and my training. I talked about Mona. I have a master's degree in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica, and my teachers there were amazing. I've studied different life coaching strategies, NLP, hypnotherapy. I've had I've had my own coaches all these years, so I've been the student and the teacher.
And I think that's so important because it allows us to show up as our highest and best. And I know your story is really the story of so many other women, right? I suffered with anxiety when I was young. I was on antidepressants for about 15 years and decided to work on it emotionally and spiritually and have been off them. So a lot of your story resonates. And we all get here, as you said, with cosmic 2x4s, right? I think just being part of this human experience, there is no getting around them. It's just part of the journey. But having tools that help us navigate our way through them and stay grounded in our truth and not get caught up in the story, that's what I took from your book. Because you provide so many strategies to help navigate all of that.
Exactly.
So, you mentioned overachieving, and it's so funny because a lot of the women in my audience and some in my mastermind as well as my private clients, it's been coming up, right? Like, Linda, I feel this self-judgment come up if I'm not doing. But their soul, especially if they're in my circle, their soul is going, learn to trust, allow, and be, if you don't give yourself space to be. So, there's always a shadow side of success. And in the book, you talk about the secret life of overachievers and the shadow side of success. Could you talk about that a little more?
Oh, sure.
She's like, I know that one well.
Well, and first of all, I've got to say, especially because most of the people listening are women, ladies, we have got to stop being overactive in our masculine and our doing, and start trusting our feminine energy more. Like people ask me a lot, because I love my life and I love my business and it's very successful. And people think I work really, really, really hard. Guess what? I don't. I work with intention. I work with love. I work with creativity. But I don't do the doing thing, because I've learned that there's so much magic in the more feminine approach of creativity, of receptivity, of delegating, of saying no, of honoring our boundaries, and really calling in. See, women, we have it backwards. We are the receivers. I mean, just think of basic anatomy. We are the receivers.
Exactly.
And we do and push too much. And when we're doing that, there's no room for the universe to deliver its magic. And so most of my best opportunities have been things that just have shown up. Now, does that mean I just sit around watching TV all day, waiting for opportunity to knock on my door? No. I do my inner work. I show up and serve to the best of my ability. I spend a lot of time in my own creativity and meditation and taking care of myself, because if my business is teaching people how to really take care of themselves and how to have a better relationship with themselves, if I'm not integrity in doing that, my business suffers. So I tried the do, market, whatever. And then I'm like, wait a second, I'm totally out of integrity, because here I am trying to tell everybody to heal their issues and be kind to themselves, but I'm working till midnight. Like, something's off. So I just wanted to say that first, is that we've got to get out of the doing thing. And part of the reason I think so many people do is because they don't want to feel. Like, when you're not doing and you're not distracting yourself, then you actually have to feel what's really going on beneath the surface. And that's scary for a lot of people. I get that. It was scary for me too. But what I realized is that when I finally started to feel my anger, my sadness, my shame, all those things, underneath that was so much compassion and passion. And I'm not afraid to be quiet anymore. I'm not afraid to be with myself anymore. I'm not afraid to feel. And when we can give ourselves that kind of presence and that kind of peace and that kind of love that little girl inside didn't have because she was bullied or abandoned or had to take care of her parent or had to be a people pleaser or whatever it is, and a long time ago formed the mistaken belief that her worth and her value comes from what she achieves, when she finally realizes inside of us that her worth and her value is inherent, and she doesn't have to do anything, she can just be, then, oh my gosh, so much more potential opens up.
So true. It's like one of my daily mantras and my team mantra is everything unfolds with ease, grace, and flow. And that means projects, my day. It's just a mantra I use because that's the energy I want to be in. So what happens is it helps me keep my intention on that, because I love what I do, like you. So sometimes when work feels so good and flowing, I have to be even stronger in my boundaries, because it doesn't feel like I'm pushing and striving. In other words, I have to watch my time, because 14 hours can go by easily, because I love what I do and I love being creative. So there's a flip side to it, right? There's the pushing, striving, but there's also, even when we're in the feminine, which is how I lead my business from, I still have to maintain those boundaries, because I'm like, I'm on a roll here. I love creating. Right. Do you notice, as I have, it's the guilt and the self-judgment that you just talked about. Do you have any strategies or tips you can share if someone, every time she sits down, and I'm thinking of a client who is extraordinary, but every time she says, I'm going to take a Friday off, instead of enjoying herself, the old thoughts come up. Oh my God, you're slacking. You should be doing this. You have a full psychology practice. You should be doing this. What would you say to someone that was in front of you who struggles with those thoughts?
Well, the first thing I'd say is, would you take $1,000 and throw it into a fire?
No.
Okay, because feeling guilty is about as useful as that.
That's a great visual, too.
Yeah, it's a great visual. It does absolutely nothing. You sitting around and feeling guilty is like throwing $1,000 that could be used in a variety of ways into a fire. Because guilt is, here's the thing that guilt is. Guilt isn't even a real feeling. It's just a physiological response to thoughts. Same with anxiety. Sadness, anger, shame, those are actually feelings. Those are emotions, energy and emotions. Those are natural human responses to trauma, to hurt, to all those things. But guilt is guilt, regret, anxiety, overwhelm, physiological responses to thoughts. So basically what guilt is you haven't given, it's a way that when you feel like you're doing something wrong, you feel guilty to make yourself feel like at least you're a good person. So, oh my gosh, I'm taking this time off of work, but at least I'm feeling guilty about it. So that makes me still committed in some way. So when you start to feel that guilt, have that visual. I might as well be throwing $1,000 into the fire, and make that conscious choice. Either I'm going to let go of the guilt and reaffirm my deservingness of this and how this is going to replenish me, and I'm just going to feel into the joy of being able to relax into this moment right now, or go back to work.
Yeah, like
feeling guilty is not useful.
Yeah, and I had have conversations with myself over the last 25 years that I've been on this path, that every moment I'm giving into guilt or any of those other energies is I'm giving away, I'm choosing, I'm making the choice because it's conscious, right? Mm-hmm. To give away my life force energy, my joy. And so when I started, reframing that, going, Linda, do you want to be joyful or do you want to carry this stuff? And it's just a question I ask my soul, and in an instant I can shift because I know the choice is always mine.
Yep.
So when we come back from the next break, I want to talk about how do we go after those major life goals without getting disappointed along the way, because we all have goals. So I'm curious about that, and I'll be back in a moment with Christine Hassler. You can learn more about all her books, including Expectation Hangover, as well as all of her other extraordinary resources at ChristineHassler.com. I'll be back in a moment.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Experience a homecoming to your heart. In the foreword of Dr. Deborah Riebel's new book, Being Love, How Loving Yourself Creates Ripples of Transformation in Your Relationships and the World, Marcy Shimoff shares, the answer to our inner longing isn't finding love, it's being love. The practices that Dr. Deborah presents in Being Love are keys to opening your heart and receiving your divine birthright as a physical manifestation of love. Her techniques, developed over years of successful private practice with her clients and from her extensive training in multiple disciplines, are accessible, compassionate, and effective. Her message is powerful, and if you allow it, will change your whole life. Order your copy of Being Love today at beinglovebook.com and receive over 45 transformational gifts. Being Love is brought to you by Inspired Living Publishing.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTRFM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and today we're talking about expectation hangover, self-talk, and, all the pressure we put on ourselves to do. And it's time that we all learn to just be and be more loving to ourselves. And with me today is Christine Hassler. So, we all have goals, right, Christine? And so we're walking this fine line of achieving the goals and dealing with the disappointments. Are you saying there's a way not to get disappointed when things happen?
Here's the thing. I think that what I've learned, obviously this is my body of work, so I've had a lot of practice with it, is that I still get disappointed. I still have expectation hangover sometimes, but the time between my disappointments is a lot longer. I have way fewer expectation hangovers, and the time I spend suffering in them when I have them is a lot shorter. So as we heal more issues, see, here's the thing. Back to what I was saying initially about expectation hangovers, I'll give you an example. So one of my core wounds from childhood is rejection, feeling left out, feeling rejected. I've done a lot of work on that wound, a lot of different kinds, a lot of work. I really have let it go, and I'm very, very kind to that little Christine inside who feels rejected. Now, from a lot of my life, I experienced a lot of rejection. Even my first book was rejected 49 times before I got a yes. Rejection business-wise, rejection in social circles, rejection from men, all different kinds. But honestly, since I've really healed that issue, and at the University of Santa Monica, we learned that the definition of healing is the application of love to the places inside that hurt. So the more I've gone into those past memories and applied love and compassion and felt my feelings around them that I had to keep stuffed inside, I really don't experience rejection. I don't. Even if someone, let's say in a dating circumstance, even if someone doesn't like me or doesn't whatever, I know it's not about me. It doesn't happen that way inside of me. The disappointment, the expectation hangover doesn't push the same buttons. So that's one of the ways that we experience less disappointment, expectation hangovers. As we heal some of those core issues and reframe some limiting beliefs that we made at a very young age, we stopped attracting those experiences, because how expectation hangovers happen for us is they're knocking on a door. They're going, I know this hurts, but I'm trying to get your attention because I want you to go back and deal with the fact that your father left the family when you were 8 years old, and that broke your heart. So I keep having all these experiences of heartbreak, hoping you go back and deal with that. And so that's how they're really in service to us. So when we actually go back and get to the root, again, why I really wanted to write this book, then they happen less. That's one of the ways that we experience the less of them. The other way is to pursue our goals, or I really say intentions, with high involvement but low attachment. Meaning we give it our all, not to the sense that it depletes us, but we give it our all in a healthy way. We allow ourselves to have dreams and goals, but we don't let our emotional okayness, our sense of worth, our sense of well-being, our sense of enoughness rest on the outcome. So let me give you an example. So I have a course called the Personal Mastery Course, and it's basically I take Expectation Hangover and teach it in an online course and give you even more than this in the book. And we used to do a launch every year. We're not doing that anymore. Now it's just going to be available. But every year we had a launch, and I would have a number in mind of the number of people that I'd want to enroll in the course. And I pursued that goal with high involvement and intention. My team and I, we did everything that we could. However, I didn't push myself beyond what I knew was healthy for me. Like this last launch that we had, I was in Paris speaking, and I had the choice a couple of times to do another Facebook Live or do another marketing push, or go out and see the Eiffel Tower, or go have a fabulous lunch in Paris. Do you know what I chose?
Paris.
I chose to enjoy Paris. And because I want to pursue my goals with that high intention and involvement, but with low attachment. And so we came close to the number. We didn't hit it exactly, but I made those choices along the way of, I don't want to be so attached to something that I'm not enjoying my life and that I'm depleting it. And when we didn't hit the exact number, that's okay. I still was so grateful for the number that we hit, because my sense of self, my worthiness, does not depend on the number. I'm more concerned about and more invested in, okay, for the people we have in the course, how do I serve them in the highest, rather than focus on, oh, well, it's 20 less people than I wanted. And so there was no disappointment at all. So keep that in mind. That's what I call the secret sauce: high intention and involvement, but low attachment. Don't make your emotional well-being, your mood, your sense of worthiness dependent on any result or goal.
That's powerful, and I love the secret sauce. And it's so true, because if you had given up those moments in Paris, which are, at that time, it was like this golden, beautiful, sacred opportunity in front of you to focus on the launch, you would have felt it. You would have felt regret, because your soul wanted you to be fully present in that experience.
Exactly. And again, I would have been out of integrity with what I teach. I teach people, enjoy your life, have good balance, have boundaries, like learn to focus on what matters. We get way too swept up in the things that don't matter as much. And, I've always been somebody that thinks that the experiences of my life and the impact I make are what is most important. And so pushing myself to try to reach a number or compete with, other people in my business or whatever it may be, is out of integrity with what I teach. And I have spent, from a very young age, since fourth grade, I had been trying to be the best and get the best grades. I was the kid who cried if I got an A-. My parents would be like, Christine, it's okay. Like, get a B. We don't care. I would be devastated if I got anything below like a 97. And it was years and years and years of putting intense pressure on myself. And you know what? When you put so much pressure on yourself, you don't enjoy your life. And life is way too short, and there's way too much fun to be had to not enjoy it.
Oh, it's so true. And I think for so many of us, especially those of us called to service, right? And, I have a lot of heart-centered female entrepreneurs that also follow me, but service, it doesn't matter what type, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur or working at a nonprofit, those who are called to serve someone, we do put that kind of pressure on ourselves, right? That I didn't meet my goal, or I let someone else down, or I didn't reach the number. I see it with the entrepreneurs that I serve. They're looking at what everyone else is doing in the online world, in the case of my conversations, and they're judging themselves against it, right? And then when they do a launch or a project, and they don't meet the glossy version of what the others are posting, they judge themselves. So that comes all down to their value is not within, their value is outside themselves then.
Exactly.
And one of the things I love to teach, because I love using spiritual principles with my authentic marketing work, and I said to them, when you birth something to the world, this is my belief system, and I birth a lot of projects. I receive, which is the creation, like you with Expectation Hangover. You poured your heart and soul into it, you did the research, and then you birth. And I believe that's what we do. We receive, we create, we birth. Well, at birth time, when you're releasing a product or service to the world, we have to let it go with the belief and intention that I was led to create this. It's going to abundance and whatever will come a different way. It doesn't have to be attached to that one thing. We have to stay pure in what we're led to create. That's what I found for myself, because I used to chase everything. Now I go, my job is done the moment it's birthed to the world, energetically, intentionally. Of course, I still, have some steps to do, but to me, it's just switched the pressure, and I have 5 brands. It's took the pressure off. It's like I just want to come from a place of service. Do you see a lot of service professionals like psychologists, life coaches, and all that struggle with this too, this being caught between two worlds?
Well, I see a lot of spiritual people and life coaches trying to fix themselves through helping other people.
Oh, I love that.
And aren't really, really, really giving themselves what they give others. I'm raising my hand as one of these people. I just did a post recently on Instagram. I love Instagram. It's my favorite social media platform. And it was about that it took me years to really see myself and give myself the same kind of compassion that I give my clients and my followers and people that come to retreats or take courses. I have so much wisdom and compassion that I dish out. And I was like, whoa, I need to be the recipient of this. And so I for any coaches or healers or light workers listening, you have got to give yourself what other people are paying you to give, because otherwise, one, you will burn out. And 2, there's a lack of trust that continues to be reinforced when our unconscious and the little girl again inside of us sees us giving to others what we're not giving to ourselves.
So true. Well, you hit the nail on the head on that, and a lot of the conversations I've had over the years with clients, as well as my own journey. So we're going to go to our last break, and when we come back, I've heard you say that there's a reason why so many people fail, and I don't really, that word's a strong word, but fail at personal growth. How can we make changes that really stick? And we'll be talking about that and more when we come back in a moment. And I'm with Christine Hassler of ChristineHassler.com. I'll be back in a sec.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you ready to manifest the life of your dreams? Do you often wonder why it hasn't happened yet? When you are in alignment with your deepest desires, you have unlimited power to manifest more wealth, better health, and happiness. By using a unique formula and proven process to help you create higher levels of energy in the moment and long term, at the Wealth Attraction Academy, you'll discover the support you need to help you do just that. The Wealth Attraction Academy was founded by 7-figure business owner, international best-selling author, speaker, coach, and Aspire magazine expert columnist, Anne Sanfilippo. Anne's mission is to provide women like you with the tools and resources you need to manifest an abundant life of your dreams, financially, emotionally, and spiritually. Visit wealthattractionacademy.com to claim your free Attract Wealth, Health, and Happiness gift set and schedule a free discovery session today.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Me, a cat moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and we're talking about a lot of juicy topics today that I know many of you listening are raising your hand going, oh, yep, that's me. I've experienced that. And Christine has been doing this work for well over a decade now, and this book, Expectation Hangover, Free Yourself from Your Past, Change Your Present, and Get What You Really Want, really hit a chord with me when it first came out a few years ago. And Christine, I've followed you for a while, and you've shared that a lot of people fail at personal growth. What do you mean by that? Explain what that means.
Fail at personal growth?
Yes.
Did I use those words?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would never say that people are failing at personal growth. I think that I've said that people think they're failing at personal growth because they're not thinking positively all the time, and they're not able to manifest everything that they want. And there's a lot of, I think, so let's just be real. I love the personal development industry. I love it. I think it's so amazing, and it's been so helpful to me. And it's a business. And a lot of people have figured out ways to really do well marketing to people that are struggling. And so because of that, there's almost this pressure that I think a lot of people feel that, well, if I've read 2 self-help books and I'm not better, then something's wrong with me. Or if I've been seeing my therapist for 5 years and my mother still triggers me, then I'm doing something wrong. Or if I can't manifest like everybody who has these vision boards can manifest, then I'm failing. And so I think there's judgment that goes along with personal development sometimes in terms of the speed in which we quote unquote should be feeling better or evolving. And what's important to keep in mind is that we're all on our own path. We find the teachers and the tools that we're ready for when we're ready for them. I mean, I have found tools in the last couple of years that are a lot faster, but a lot more intense that I wouldn't have been ready for 10 years ago. So we all have our process, and we have to remember that growth is a process, not an event. And please, please, please do not judge your path of evolution and of healing.
Oh, so true. And I call it comparisonitis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, but you know what? She's taken that course and she has reached this point. And as you said, they compare, they judge, and all of that. I see that so much in the personal and spiritual development world. And I want to say, until you look at the self-judgment and the conversation you're having with yourself about this, that's where the healing will take place, not in the book, the workshop, etc. Look at the conversation that you're having within. And how do I know that? Because I had to learn that, So to me, it's about being willing, as we said earlier in our conversation, it's being willing to look beyond the shallow surface stuff that's showing up in our lives and dive deeper into the stuff that makes us uncomfortable.
Yep, exactly.
So what is going on with you now? What do you have coming up? Anything?
Aww.
Yeah, I want to hear all about it, what you have going on this summer in 2018.
Thank you so much. There's so much I love. So I love my podcast. It's called Over It and On With It, and I coach people live on the air. So every Wednesday, you get to listen to me coaching somebody live. Like I don't know anything about them before they come on. And I use life coaching and spiritual psychology, and we talk about really deep stuff. So that's every Wednesday an episode airs, and every Saturday I do a coach's corner where I come on and teach something, or I have another thought leader. I actually, if you kind of go back to beginning of June, there was a great episode that people are loving called Why is Growth So Painful, that pertains to some of the things that we're talking about today and takes it a level deeper. So Over and On With It podcast is great. And then the course I mentioned, the Over and On With It Personal Mastery, that is going to be available evergreen to anybody, but it also includes live coaching calls with me. And you can just go to christinehafner.com, find everything there. I do retreats. My retreat in Bali will be in 2019. I have a big retreat in March coming up. So if you resonate with when I was talking about deep core issues and you want to get to the bottom of them and release them, my retreat in March would be perfect for you. So all that's at christinehafner.com.
Oh, my God. You have some magic going on.
Yes, it's all just, I'm very, very lucky to live a life that I didn't know was possible for me. To be off antidepressants for 10 years now, to have the freedom and flexibility that I do, to have amazing friends and family, to be able to do something that I love, and to feel so connected to the universe and the spirit and healthy and free. You know, it wasn't an easy road, but now that I've walked it, I want to show people the shortcuts. And I also just am so it's like, I feel like, Linda, and I'm sure you can relate to this, that I've eaten at a really, really good restaurant, and I want everyone to try it. That's how I feel about my work.
Yeah, it's like, I have to spread the word. They have to know about this, because you know what the live in the opposite way feels like.
Yes, and I know we're running out of time, but one more thing. I'm also aware of giving people the dignity of their process. People wake up when they're ready. Please don't go and try to change your family or your partner or even your kids. Like, you can plant seeds and things like that, but the thing about a growth path, you know, I've left a lot of friends behind because, not behind, we've just gone on different paths. I don't try to enroll anyone in this or change anyone. We really have to give people the dignity of their process too.
I think it's beautiful. We still have a few minutes, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I was just talking to a client the other day who actually said, you know, my spiritual path almost cost me my marriage, Linda. And I said, I said, well, let's talk about it. And she said, I realized that I wasn't thinking how my husband and children would be feeling, and what they were feeling, because that's their own story, is she going to leave us behind? Because she's also, you know, she's a powerful leader on top of it, and has two thriving businesses. And so she realized, oh my goodness, I never tried to bring them on the path, but they felt like I was going on a completely different one, that they were being left behind on the old one. So she had to learn how to integrate and bring them along without trying to get them on her path. Does that resonate with what you've heard also with clients?
Yes. Well, and what I've seen, like I've seen so many people try to get their spouse or their friends or their mother or their, you know, I have, you know, when I first started reading all personal growth books and stuff, I'd go home for Thanksgiving and preach all this stuff to my family, and they'd just be like, you know, whatever.
Yeah, here she goes again.
Here she goes again, yeah. And I wasn't embodied, so I had all this awareness, but then I'd snap at my mom out of nowhere, you know? And I have impacted people more just by living in my integrity and walking the talk than anything I could have said or done. So if you want to impact people, walk the talk. And they'll either pick up on it and say, hey, I want what she's having, like that famous scene from When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
Or they'll stay asleep. But we can't influence or change. And again, it's another way we distract ourselves from our own path. And it was a big thing that impacted my marriage that is now over. I, you know, was working so hard on myself, and I wanted my ex-husband to change too. And instead of keeping the focus on me, I was constantly looking at the issues he needed to resolve in his own life. It was way easier to see someone else than ourselves sometimes. And especially for a man, you never want to do that. But for any human being, it's like, we don't want to point out their issues or be their coach or their teacher. You know, I have very firm boundaries. The people in my life, the people that I care about romantically, and my family, my friends, they are not my clients. I do not coach them. Sometimes a friend will say, hey, I'd love your advice. And I ask for permission. I say, do you want Coach Christine right now? Do you want me to go into that? And I have to get their full permission before I even go there. Otherwise, it's just the boundaries are clear. Because unless you have an agreement with someone, you don't want to be trying to be their teacher.
So true. That's powerful wisdom, because I think a lot of us, and I've done it in the past, I've been with my partner, God, almost going into our 25th year, and he is extraordinary. And like you, I remember buying The Secret way back when, going, and this and that, and he goes, baby, this is your path. He goes, you can talk to me about it, but not in that conversational way, which is the converting way. So we had deep conversations about the concepts, because I switched my energy, that I wasn't trying to convert him to a new way of thinking. I was sharing something I was excited about. And thankfully, he could speak his truth in a loving way, right? Exactly. So I'm blessed for that. But thank you. That was That was really insightful, and I know it's going to be so helpful for the listeners because I think we all have that tendency that we're so excited about something, but sometimes we do take our eyes off ourselves and start focusing on someone else's wounds and perceived faults instead of looking at our own. So thank you for that.
Oh, of course. Of course. Believe me, all these things are reminders to myself as well.
Oh, we've all lived through them.
Yeah.
Well, I am so glad that you were able to join me today, and I want to invite all the listeners who are joining us live as well as who will be listening to the replay. Visit ChristineHassler.com to learn more about the empowering work, products, events, retreats, everything this magical woman has going on. Again, that's ChristineHassler.com. Until next time, everyone, choose love, choose joy, and choose magic. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.